Now let's talk about the automatic selection tools in Photoshop because that's the real power here and what most people use for everyday selection. First of all, let's open up this picture of me from 1976. So just a little while ago. I think I was around 10 years old. I'm going to zoom in. Remember, the keyboard shortcut is Control or Command on a Mac and 0. And let's make sure that we have Photoshop selected before we do that. There we go. And next, we're going to grab one of the automatic selection tools. So we have the quick selection tool and we have the magic wand. With the quick selection tool, when you bring your cursor over to your document, you should see a brush. Now, it's possible that your brush is super tiny, and I'm going to make mine super tiny so you can see. If it looks like this, you just might have a super tiny brush. Or if you just can't even see it, it might be so gigantic that you're not seeing it. So how do you resize these? Well, I like using a really intuitive and very easy to handle keyboard shortcut, and that is the bracket keys. What is a bracket key? Well, it's these like rectangular half rectangle. It's right next to the letter P on your keyboard. If you look to the right of the letter P, you'll see a left bracket which makes your brush smaller and a right bracket that makes your brush bigger. Okay, so what we want is we want a brush that's not going to go outside the edge of our selection. So we're going to select my little face here. So I don't want a brush like that because I'd get everything. That's not what I want. Control D. I want a brush that's about yay big. Now, another little tip, if you can't change the size of your brush, it's because you have caps lock on. So just make sure you don't have caps lock on. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do this selection by painting on the selection, and it's going to, just like the magic wand tool, it's going to look for things that are the same color. So I'm going to start up here, not at the very top. Don't let your brush go outside your selection area. So I'm going to start here in my part of my hair, and I'm just going to do a click and drag straight down my face. You can see got this half. Excellent. The lighting over here is a little different, and there's a little bit less contrast. Let's try the shirt. So I'm going to just click and drag across the left shoulder here and then the right shoulder. It looks like right down here it hasn't gotten it, so I'm going to click and drag there. Sometimes you have to make your brush a little bit smaller so that I don't go outside the arm. And sometimes it just doesn't work. You can see I got a little of the background. We're going to clean that up in just a second. Let's get the rest of the head here. Sometimes I'll just do little tiny moves so that I don't go outside, or just a single click. And like here in the ear, I'm just going to do a single click. There we go. And it looks like there's a little spot up there. Okay, so now I need to fix this up. Remember, if you need to zoom in, Control and Space Bar changes any tool temporarily into the zoom tool. And the hand you can get by going to Space Bar. Okay, so I want to get rid of this stuff and that little chunk right there. Obviously, I'm going to make my brush smaller. So left bracket key. Now, if you can see on my brush, there's a symbol right in the middle of the brush, and it's a plus symbol, meaning I'm adding to the selection. If you hold Alt down or Option on a Mac, you can see it turns into a minus button. You can also come up here to your options bar, and you can see that there's a plus here and a minus there. I never do that. I always hold Alt down because it's just a lot faster. So I'm going to hold Alt down and just click and drag, and then hold Alt down here and click and drag. It looks like I lost a little, so I just let go of Alt and I'm back to adding, which is awesome. By the way, Shift is add. If you do go to the minus, you go to the dark side here, and you say, well, gosh, I want to add to it. What's the keyboard shortcut for that? If you hold Shift down, it changes it into the, it changes it into the add selection. Okay, so that is how you select with the quick selection tool. I want to give you a couple more tips here. So I'm going to Control 0 just to zoom back out. Now, if I go ahead and hit mask here, you can see that the edge is real hard and kind of bumpy. And it looks like I took a pair of scissors and cut myself out. So let's Control Z that. We've got our selection. Up here in the options bar, we have this select subject and we have select mask. Let's go to select and mask and you'll get this dialog box over here. And these are some really nice options. First of all, you can change how it's going to view. Like I want to see what it's going to view with, if I got rid of that, what it would look like in black and white, on white. It's getting, so there's just all sorts of different options. I prefer to do what I'm going to do later, which is, put it on its own layer and mask it out. So that's what I usually keep it at. Okay, the feather is I think the most important thing. So don't go too crazy because you'll disappear. You can see that does not look accurate. So I'm going to do, like on this picture, maybe I don't know, maybe a 4-pixel feather, and you can see it nice. It gives it a nice soft edge around the whole thing, which is kind of cool. If you have a little bit of too much that you selected or a little too little, you can shift the edge of where that selection is, kind of shrink me or make me a little fatter. I'm just going to bring that back to 0. Okay, and then once you've got this the way you want it, you can decontaminate the colors, and that's really if you were shooting on like a green screen or something like that. So when we go to output, you have to decide, what do you want to output? Do you just want to fix the selection? Or I usually choose output a layer mask, and what that does, let me go ahead and hit output layer mask, and then I'm going to hit OK, and what it does basically is it just adds this mask right here. So here's the mask and here's the picture, and this mask just makes everything that I hadn't selected transparent, and everything that I had is kept in there. So you've got a really nice selection of 10-year-old Joe. Let's just finish this off. Be fun is to add a nice gradient background there. So let's go to our adjustment layers and let's come up here to gradient and click on the box here for gradient, and there's all sorts of fun things. I'm going to choose this orange to purple, and I'm going to just hit OK because that looks really cool, and I'll just throw it underneath me. There we go. So that kind of looks like a 70s vibe going on there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save this, and of course you're saving it as a Photoshop file. There we go, Photoshop files. So I'll call it Joe 1976, that's fine, and I can continue to edit this because it's a Photoshop file. And then to turn it in to Mr. Dockery, I'm going to do Save As, and go to my Exports folder here, and I think I wanted you to call this 06 Joe 1976. There we go. Excellent. So one more selection here. Let's go into Open, and let's open up that other picture of me when I was in high school. So this is probably, instead of 76, this is maybe 82, 83, 84, somewhere in that range. And you can see I have feathery hair now. That was back in the style. How much feather could you get? So if we're using the quick selection tool, and I'm going to go back to add, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger with my right bracket, click and drag across my face, across my shirt here, boom. This is pretty easy. Okay, so here's the deal. If we go into select and mask now, you can see that again, oh, that's a hard, nasty edge. We can always feather it, but it's still not going to get all those wispy hairs that I spent all that time blow drying. So how do you get that back? Well, there's these controls over here that allow you to add to the selection. I have another quick selection tool. I can add and subtract. I can do the brush. I can use the lasso tool. But this refine edge is specifically designed for wispy hair. So I'm going to grab the refine edge. It's a brush, so I can make it bigger and smaller with my bracket keys. And I'm not going to put the whole thing on the edge. I'm just going to put a part of the edge. I'm just going to kind of drag along here. And you can see it's kind of dynamically looking at the hair and saying, okay, where's the hair coming from? And it's gonna put a nice soft edge just on that hair and pull out that hair a little. So that's really nice. I might feather this just a little, just for the edge of my shirt there as well. So maybe a 3 or something like that. And let's choose layer mask, hit OK, and there we go. That's kind of looking cool. Let's put another gradient behind there just for fun so I can see that you did the assignment. I'm going to go with this golden one. Yeah. Actually, we'll see what that looks like. Throw it underneath me. That's not too bad. You can play around. I really don't care what gradient you use. I'm just really looking at your selection. So let's, again, we're going to save this one as our Photoshop file in our Photoshop files folder. We'll call it, we'll just leave the name the same, but for the export, when we save as and change it into a JPEG, so Mr. Dockery can grade it, go to our exports folder, and this one I want you to call 06.2, because that's version 2 of our quick selection activity. And there you go. Don't forget to hit the OK for the JPEG options. And that is it for the quick selection tool.